Okay, now I hope this works and that the sound is good. And okay, okay, so we can start. This will be quite relatively short presentation. I just put few slides. I don't want to bother you too much with the content. I wanted to use some of those materials just as a starting point of some reflection on this topic. So yeah, the let's say main idea or insight what came from what inspired to make presentation on this topic actually came from one friend. I think he's also in the audience today. I don't want to put him on the spotlight about the very common ritual which also some of you and me personally sometimes use, and it's when somebody you really care about has to go on some trip or a journey or maybe just one flight back home or something like that, that we used to tell them or ask them that if they can text us when they come home and when they come safely. And when I was a teenager and I was living uh, away from my parents during high school and university, I would often get that uh, inquiry or request from my parents that I have to text them so they know that I came safe. And sometimes it bothered me. Sometimes it made me angry at that point. It was before my analysis, before my uh, fight with my complexes. But back then, it was hard to understand why, you are, I don't know, you want to hang out with your friends or your buddies from the transport or in the bus, and then you have to like text few here and there that everything is okay and that you pass certain points and so on. And it was very, very interesting then when I get a little bit older and then I get involved in some relationships where the other person was very important to me and still is. And then the same ritual I repeat as my parents are doing still sometimes. So it's very actually a very common practice, and I know that most of you are familiar with that. And then I wanted to see what can be behind it, and if we can take it from a Jungian perspective, what new insights can we take? And so yeah, and basically there is some like the second title is saying, there is some symbology of care, control, and connection between those two people. The interesting thing about the main title is that there is already some contradictive uh, background. So when somebody says to you that you should text when you get home, there are some contradictions between that person who is asking that and that symbology of home. Because from that sentence, it can be said that that person who asked for that, she or he isn't at at that person isn't at the home. So that you know the difference between, so we have we have three items. We have the person who is asking for it, we have the person who is receiving that, and we have that symbology of home. And now we have to see where are the connections between them. So basically, I divided this presentation in three parts with, I think, three slides. So we will talk about those who have to leave, those who have to stay, and eventually those who have to return from certain journey. And I would start with those who have to leave. And this is a picture of soldiers engaging the train in the World War II in Brisbane. And if we take this man who's, let's say, in the center or right near the center of the picture, which he's waving to us, and we can represent our his maybe girlfriend or wife or mother or some friend maybe, and we can see his kind of joy, or his expression says that some parts of him maybe is excited that he's leaving the train. And when you see those images from some railroads, train stations, and there's um, that symbols of that actually you're not the only one who is leaving at the moment. And when you see those pictures of people engaging in the train and it's actually very interesting to see that when there's part of separation, then there is always some kind of need of grouping that person, and that the individual is not the only one who is leaving, but it's actually a common thing that, for instance, when you have students who have to leave parents' home, or even some maybe, uh, for instance, when you have some sport events, and then those when the fans like to say hello to their favorite club members, that they have to leave and embark on some journey or some plane, or there's some ritual of wishing them farewell. You know, even if we are ambivalent about their embark, about their trip. And we can see also this picture that not only our main guy in the center, but also there are some other guys who, and you can see maybe, for instance, on those two guys on the left, there is certain ambivalence with what we are getting from them, and some sense of worriness, and mm, maybe some slight of fear of the unknown, of what will happen. And when we take that psychologically and symbologically in our inner life, when we have to face something new, something unknown, there is a certain excitement, there is certain, um, yeah, excitement what we will face in that period. But some part of us is anxious, and has that slight edge of the fear, because maybe that is dangerous, and maybe it will hurt us, or it will make us feel not as pleasant as we wish to, you know. And then on the second thing, you have those who have to stay, who this is a very particular strong emotional picture from the current ongoing war in Ukraine. And that there's also great ambivalence in the emotions. One part of you is happy that your loved one is leaving, and they're going for safety, they're going for um, away from certain troubles and pain, and death even. And there's also ambivalence about you have to stay at that moment. And for instance, when a parent is seeing that the child is leaving, some part of the family figure, parent figure is, let's say, happy for it, because this is the circle of life, and that this kid of her or will grow up and have some new experiences in life, and grow up and actually taste the life itself like the parent had maybe 20 years, 30 years ago. But there's also that ambivalence of those who have to stay. So the parent has to deal with, the circle of life, the the straight arrow of the time that we cannot hold, and we cannot return the clock backwards. And then that's also a moment of reflection. What has happened when we were in that situation, or we had experienced when we were going on the journey, and uh, you know, will that other part of us, or our emotional person who we love and care about, will they manage to go through all of that with in a good way, in a positive way, in a healthy way that they will not be destroyed by that experience. You know? So there is certain strong emotions when for those who have to leave, but also for those who have to stay. And then there's that part of every journey. There's a certain returning point, and this when I was preparing for this, was trying to find some materials, and when I struck upon this picture, it was very very intense, and I knew that I have to use this picture in the slides. And where we see actually this mother who's they are, I think, Austrian prisoners of war, and after the World War II, and they were released, I think, from the Russian camps. And then they're returning home, and you see that mother who is holding the picture of her son, and wishing that somebody will recognize the son and maybe tell what happens with her son. And then you see this man who's very happy that he is alive, that he returned home. And although in this picture probably it's not the same, but if we take symbologically that, you know, maybe this is the same guy from the picture, the same son, but he's different, and he had that experience which changed him and made him who he is today, and that's different from the one man who left the home. And I think this picture says more than I can say in the words. That every experience that we have in our lives, it's actually changing us, and it makes all the experience we had until today also made us who we are today. But sometimes when we are reflecting back to our past and maybe seeing some old friends or visiting some old buildings or neighborhoods or even dreams, we often dreams about our childhood neighborhoods or schools or something like that. And then when we think about it, when we are awake, it seems to us it's like we lived some numbers of lives, different lives, and it was happening to a different person. And that's very very interesting to reflect on that, and to see that no, this was also me. I don't know, a few years ago. I also went. I did went through that, this and that, and have those emotions, those experiences, those fears. They all have an impact on me, and they change me. So when we are looking back at the main text, and the subject, that you know and we take that symbologically, that some part of us has to stay in the place where we are. Some part of us has to change and leave and make a decision, even if that decision sometimes hurts our ego or some parts of our ego. And that's what I like, that I wanted this presentation to happen on the 6th of May. And uh, in the folklore, that's the day of Saint George, who kills the dragon, one of the most representative images in sculptures and culture, in paintings, and in in, yeah, in myths and legends, you know, and sometimes that dragon also associates us to some fears, to some danger, to some unpleasant emotions, some anger, some rage. But back then, you have to see that, even if this picture shows the victory of the decisiveness, the strong will, the motivation to move forward, there is a sense of connection between the Saint George and the dragon because they are through that spear they have some deep connections, and that's why when you had to make some decision in your life and it is connected to some of your part which still wants to stay in that status quo environment, then it's not so easy. Not so easy to make certain decisions and to stay focused on them because there's always that small, let's say, dragon in us who is a little bit angry at us that we want certain things to change and to be different, to feel different, and to change in our lives, to make changes in our lives, which we think is the best for us. But sometimes it's hard to we feel they are best for us, but sometimes it's hard to put them in words and to explain on the logical, on rational base what do we want to achieve with that. So yeah, that's the beauty of life that you have to. uh, this topic also made me ambivalent about everything, and yeah, I hope I hope you liked it. Yeah, this is like one glance of this kind of lectures, and I hope I will make this kind of presentations in a regular basis. And you know, for those of you who are watching this after a certain time on YouTube, yeah, I hope also you liked the topic and you had some time to reflect on certain things, and I hope it will be helpful for your next day and your next phase of life. Yeah, thank you. I hope we see each other again. Bye.